Welcome back to my series, 7 Countries for Americans Considering Europe. There is no perfect country, always remember. But the reason that I'm doing this series is so that you have a better understanding of, with your specific needs and your specific personality and who's coming with you, what countries might be a really good fit for you. I am still a very new YouTube channel. I am here because I don't know a lot of families who moved abroad with 5 children, with kids who have disabilities, with a multiracial family. I just don't know many of us. I think we're out there, but there are not a lot of us. And so the reason that I want to be here, and the reason why I would love it if you subscribe to my channel, is because I'm giving you an alternate view of what it could be like if you are an outside-the-box family who would like to try living abroad. I'm also trying to highlight a few countries that are not as common for Americans. In my work as a Move Abroad mentor, I hear a lot of people saying, I'm interested in Ireland, I'm interested in Italy, I'm interested in France, I'm interested in Portugal, Spain. And I do live in Portugal, so you can check out my Portugal video. Portugal is not for everyone, but it is a good fit for some people. I really want in this series to help you expand your horizons and maybe consider some places that you wouldn't have before, like today's destination, which is Albania. I think that the number one thing that many Americans need right now is something that Albania can offer, which is the ability to get used to living in a different country, the ability to breathe and have a minute so that you can make your long-term plans. That is probably your greatest need right now, whether or not you realize that. Many people who haven't lived abroad do not realize that your first destination, your first place that you land, is probably not going to be the place that you stay forever. I think a lot of people who don't do well internationally, especially a lot of the people who've come to Portugal, had this idea like, I'm just gonna move to Portugal and I am gonna immigrate there and I'm gonna live there forever. And the thing about that is, then when you get here and things aren't something that feels livable forever, then you're really stuck. You've put all of this money and time and effort into a long-term plan without really knowing if you know how to live abroad, if you like living abroad. So Albania is such a unique option for Americans because you can stay currently for a year just with your passport. So I wanted to highlight Albania because I personally lived in the Republic of Georgia because it had the kind of long-term visa-free option that Albania also gives. So I know from my experience living in Georgia, it was a really good chance to live in a very different culture from my home culture and live there with a family. I think the thing that I value so much about a place like Albania or Georgia where you can stay for an entire year is that you can really get a sense of what it feels like to live abroad. Obviously, that's going to change from country to country. The whole point of this series is to help you understand your own personal preferences and whether the places that you are considering will actually match you and where you're at. Back to the number one reason that I am putting Albania in this series is that people who are moving abroad, especially for the first time, really need some time. You need some time to adjust. You need some time to get used to the wonderful aspects of living outside of America. You just need some time. And Albania gives you time. But there are all kinds of other reasons that I recommend Albania as a place that you would consider. So let's get into some of the overall benefits of Albania and who might really thrive in Albania. First of all, I'd say that if you watch my Bulgaria videos, some of the things will be in overlap because Albania is in Eastern Europe and it's not overrun by American tourists or just tourists in general in the same way that a lot of places in Western Europe are. That's actually one of the first benefits that I want to mention is that Albania, it's not undiscovered. People have been going to Albania. I think travelers like me who are interested in destinations that are a bit more off the beaten path. I mean, I lived in Georgia, a place that most Americans don't know is a country. The amount of times that I had to clarify that I didn't live in Atlanta, even though I was born in Atlanta, it was really funny. So I tend to be the kind of person who likes to be in a place that not everybody is going to. So that's a real benefit of Albania because the Albanian people are, as a whole, not yet just sick of tourists. And what we're seeing in Western Europe is, especially in places like Barcelona, I hear these sentiments in Portugal as well. There's a lot of anti-tourist rhetoric. There's a lot of anti-immigrant rhetoric. And it's because people are tired, people are struggling, and because the frameworks that keep tourism in check and keep housing in check regarding tourism, those are struggling in Western Europe. And so I think one of the amazing benefits of going farther east in Europe is that not everyone is going. And that will make it easier for you. You will feel more welcome. Now, I haven't had a huge problem here in Portugal face to face with feeling unwelcome. But I just want to point out that there is a sentiment, it's the same far right talking points that happen in the States. Our country first, etc. Immigrants are the problem. And you're not going to find that kind of idea as much in a place like Albania. So I think showing up to countries that still want you there is really beneficial, to be honest. You're going to get a better welcome. You're going to have a more authentic chance to get to know people, to get to know the culture, to have interesting conversations. I'm going to take this time to introduce myself. I'm Andy, and I am a Move Abroad mentor. I moved outside the US in 2019 with my family of 7 people. We have 5 kids. And I have lived in far Eastern Europe and far Western Europe, Georgia and Portugal. I've also spent time in many other countries in Europe. I want you to know that if you are trying to make your plan for leaving the US, you know you want to leave, maybe you're a mom, maybe you're carrying the whole mental load of this process. Ask me how I know. My husband is amazing. The time that we were leaving, he was working full time and I was not working full time. And so the whole process of getting us to move abroad was on me. And so I'm very experienced in this and I would love to support you. If you need a plan that's personalized to your family and your particular needs, or even if you're a couple or a single person who just really wants somebody to walk alongside them who has a clue and is focused on your specific personality and a country that will be a good fit for you, I invite you to book a Europe roadmap session with me. We will have a 90-minute call, and then I will give you voice note access for the next week for follow-up questions. I'll be making you a plan that you can take away for how to move toward your life in Europe. So I invite you to consider getting some support and help. I did it all alone. It took a lot of hours. I really would have liked to have somebody helping me at that time. When I talk about affordability, which is my next point, I want to be really specific that obviously affordability is relative. And so I'm talking about affordability for people who are making US dollars and can work remotely. So for people making US dollars, Albania is a much more affordable option than options in Western Europe. There will be a lot more places to live that are available at lower prices than there are over here on the western side of Europe. Really, everything will be less expensive. Prices are rising everywhere. There is inflation everywhere. We're all feeling it all over the globe right now, I think. But I do want to say that there will be places that feel less stretched for your dollar. And Albania will be one of those places when it comes to Europe. Who might thrive in Albania? I think the kind of people who love to go hiking, who love nature, and who are interested in different cultures and history will find Albania extremely fascinating. Albania has gorgeous mountains and gorgeous beaches. Tirana is the capital city. A lot of people base in Tirana. So you will find things that you find in capital cities everywhere, which would be like cultural activities and meetups of international people and cute cafes and all kinds of fun stuff. If you are somebody who tends to not need like real fancy accommodations, but are happy with like accommodations that work, that are clean, that are nice, that are comfortable, Albania could be a super good fit for you in that way. I think that Albania could work really well for you if you tend to be an outside the box thinker, if you are somebody who really likes new, different places, if you don't need to know exactly what's going to happen all the time, but if the adventure and newness is part of the fun for you, I think you're the kind of person who could really thrive in Albania. From a family perspective, world schoolers, I think, do really well in Albania. There's actually a world school meetup that I came across today that is a month-long meetup in August 2026. I would say that for families, if you're sort of like a little off the beaten path, you really like to travel as a family, you are open to new experiences, and you're interested in the adventure of it, Albania is going to be a great choice for you. It's going to feel less stretched financially. Definitely will be less stretched than America or than Western Europe. But I'd say for families who want to have a really great cultural experience and want to have some space and time to do world schooling or like online schooling, you can do that in Albania. And it might be a really good first stop for you as a family. Even if you don't know where you're going to be long term, I absolutely don't think that you need to know where you're going to be long term in order to go. And if you think you know where you're going to be for the next 10 years, I would say it's not a really realistic expectation as somebody who's making an international move. There are so many factors that you simply can't predict. If you're going to do well as an international person, if you're going to do well as an immigrant or somebody who is just living abroad in different places, you're going to need to learn how to pivot. And so if you feel like that would be a cool adventure for your family, even just why don't we go and try it for a year and enjoy the proximity to all of these amazing other places in Europe as well. That's the kind of family who's going to do really great in Albania. Okay, so now I want to talk about who might not thrive here. As a mom in a family where we have individuals who are queer and individuals who are Black, I'm always really in tune with how those family members will be treated in different places that we live, in different places that we consider visiting or living. Also, mental health care and neurodivergent support is also something that we need to consider in our family for like a long-term place to live. Albania is not rated well on Equaldex, which is a website that rates countries for sentiment and legal rights for queer people. So that's really important. To know if that affects your life. Regarding being Black in Albania, I'm going to link a couple of YouTubers that I found their videos super helpful about their experiences living in Albania. So I'm going to tell you the names. I want to make sure I get them right. So let me look. Okay, at The Lady Who Travels and at Going Farther Together. These are two YouTubers who shared their experiences as Black people in Albania. And I was really encouraged. I think you might be encouraged if you are Black and considering Albania. So there is always going to be the element of visiting places where you don't look like the people who live there. It definitely happens to us when we're all together because we're a multiracial family and we're a big family. So we get a lot of stares no matter where we go, except New York. In New York, people couldn't care less. But in almost every place that we travel, if we're all together, we get big stares. If you're really sensitive to people noticing that you stick out, I mean, honestly, you're going to struggle a lot of places abroad. But I do think that if that's something that's really hard for you, you may struggle in Albania. Because no matter where you're from, if you're an American coming to Albania, they're going to notice that you don't look like you're from there. I often have that happen to me in Portugal. I wouldn't say people stare. There's more like curiosity, but people can immediately tell that I am not from here. I'm sure it's how I dress, maybe my facial features. So that's just going to be a part of living abroad in many places. And so I'd say it probably feels a bit more extreme in a country that doesn't have as many tourists as a place like Paris or Venice, which is part of the beauty as we've discussed. One more person I want to reference on the subject of being Black in Albania is my coach, Glo Atanmo. She made a list of 25 places that she has felt really comfortable as a Black person traveling after visiting 100 countries. And she didn't mention Albania, but she did mention 3 neighboring Balkan countries. So she mentioned Montenegro right next door, Croatia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And so just generally in the Balkan region, she felt really safe. So if you're thinking of basing in Albania and heading north and checking out the beautiful, beautiful Balkan region, then I think that it was really encouraging to me that those are places that she, as a single Black woman at the time, traveling, really felt comfortable and welcomed and wanted. I think that this subject, no matter your ethnic background of being wanted is a real thing that I'm trying to hit on in this series, because it's hard enough to move internationally. I do want to talk about these topics of being welcomed and being wanted, because I think that when you're an American who is just really overwhelmed, really probably your nervous system is on, I don't know, meltdown. That's how I was when I was living in the States. I felt underwater. If you are coming from a place like that, it's really sweet to realize that some places will welcome you and are really glad that you've come. And I think for somebody who is maybe neurodivergent or just tired or in a marginalized group, coming somewhere where you are welcomed, it matters. And that's why I want to highlight these countries that I'm highlighting, because there's not as much of the anti-American sentiment that there is in a lot of places. And I don't blame people. I do not blame people. But this is something that is really important to consider as you think about where you might go to get a break from America or to start your experience living abroad in Europe. I mentioned mental health support and neurodivergent support. I don't know those specific details about Albania, but I do know that it's certainly not known for having super great neurodivergent or mental health medical care. So I just wanted to mention an option for anyone who maybe wants to try a place like Albania, but still needs maybe mental health care or neurodivergent care of different sorts. There is a real possibility for making some place in Western Europe your medical base, but not living there. If you, for example, got your tax number, which isn't hard to do, in Portugal, you can make Portugal a medical base where you're not trying to immigrate here, you're not even trying to get residency here, but you're using the amount of time that you can visit Portugal and using it for medical care. This isn't that crazy of an idea. I think if you're going to base in Europe, there's a lot of fluidity of like how much you can move between places, especially when you have the kind of freedom that you have being able to stay in Albania for an entire year on your passport. I would recommend thinking outside the box and establishing your medical care in Portugal. There's a lot of English available medical care here. You can get insurance, and then you could come and fly over here and, get your appointments done. I'm sure there's other countries you could do this with. And, we have friends who live in Georgia who use a therapist here who speaks English and understands the issues that their child is dealing with a little bit better than anyone that they've found in the Republic of Georgia. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I'm saying there's just more availability in Portugal. So they've used Portugal in that way for mental health support. So please, I just want to encourage you to think a little bit outside the box about how, if you're living in Europe, the one place that you're living doesn't need to meet all your needs. That actually reminds me that the YouTuber, The Lady Who Travels, her name is Abigail, she was talking about how it's hard to find plus size clothing in Albania. And this is another example of, okay, you live in Europe. What you can do is you can go to a place where the people are closer to your size or there are people or clothing closer to your size. So like for my daughter, she is very tall and she has broad shoulders. And so when we would go to the UK or we would go to other places in Northern Europe, we would buy clothes for her because The Portuguese sizing is very small because the people are much smaller than we are. So these are just things that you have to be aware of. That could be a real turnoff for many of you if you're used to basically the convenience of being able to order anything that you want and it gets there in a day. Even for another point of who might not do very well, if you're used to the convenience of ordering something and getting it sometimes even that afternoon in America, those are the kinds of conveniences that will not be very likely in Albania. I know when we lived in Georgia, you could order things through like Glovo or Wolt, and you could order something and have it delivered, sort of more like an Uber Eats type of style, but for shopping or for pharmacy stuff. So there are ways to get things delivered to you. It's not that. It's just you can't get anything you want delivered to you the next day in many countries in Europe. So if that's something that is really necessary for your life or is something that you really value, I don't think that you're going to do well in Albania. But I would say, even if you are a person like me who thinks that, oh, it's really nice to be able to order something and have it come so quickly, it's more worth it to me, the trade-offs that I receive by living over here, the trade-offs for peace of mind. I actually like the result of not being able to just order something and have it here right away. It reduces my consumerism. It reduces my stuff. I'm more mindful about what I consume. And, I think that there's something about not having something come for 3 or 4 days. It really makes you question, like, oh, do I need that? And you really only order the things that you do need. So a lot of the shopping situation in Albania, though, will be you need to go out to a store and find it. And that's something that Americans really aren't used to anymore. And it's something that will be a part of your daily life, but it will also reduce your consumption. And so I think that if you're like me, you're a person who maybe wants to reduce your consumption, but like everything is so convenient in America. It's really easy to spend a lot of money and have things come to your doorstep. But that's not what, in my opinion, makes life worth living. And so there are going to be less conveniences in Albania than you're used to in America, and it might be good for you. But it's really good to really think about, how's that going to feel? And maybe you won't know until you get there. I think what I want to offer to you is the fact that we have a lot of things going on in our family, and we still did this anyway. And so I want you to know that if you have complicating factors for any reason, and you really want to leave America and you really want to try living in Europe, but you just haven't ever seen anybody who has complicating factors do it. And by complicating factors, I mean that can be kids, that can be special needs, that can be mental health struggles. I mean, I could go on for a very long time about our complicating factors. Even just our family size, 7 people, is complicated. So I just want you to know, if you have things that are making you pause, that's why I'm here. I would love it if you subscribe. I would love it if you tell your friends, just because I think my voice is not a common one in this space. And so that's why I'm here. I hope that this video was helpful to you. I would really be thankful if you liked it. And I would be even more thankful if you commented and tell me if Albania seems like an interesting place to you, if you would ever consider it, or if it just seems like a no to you. Thanks. See you next time.